Welcome to the HawkCast with your host, AJ Hawk.
James Laurinaitis is our guest. For the audio listeners that can't see him, James has a nice little setup there. So he's has some video element for us. We've been a couple weeks without the video, so now James is back. I appreciate it. But James, you're the for people that don't know, which they do, you're the all-time leading tackler in St. Louis, now Los Angeles Rams history. How many years did you play in St. Louis?
7 full seasons there.
Do you know how many tackles it is?
I have no idea.
I'm sure it's over 1,000, correct?
It is, yeah. According to the actual coaching statistics, it's over 1,000. But you know the way the NFL stats work, they like to jippy up a bunch of them.
Explain that for people, because people have no idea. Explain how the tackles work.
Yeah, so really the tackles that are registered in the NFL are done by the statistician upstairs in the press box. And so he could be up there having a beer, having some nachos, who knows what he's doing, and just looking down at the pile and, who is that down there? Oh, okay, 58, someone else. Just give him the tackle. Unless you play, somewhere else. Like we used to play in Penn State, it didn't matter what linebacker they were trying to promote. They made every tackle, whether he was near the ball or not. So that's how it works for the NFL stats. But for the coaches' stats, they go and review the film, and they have their own stats. So there's pretty big discrepancy every single year with the two, I would say.
Oh, it's huge. I played with I had Urlacher on here a couple months ago, and I see him out in Lake Tahoe every summer at this golf thing, and they announced him. They give you a big intro and before you hit your first drive, and they said he however many seasons, 1,326 tackles, Brian Urlacher, and he's like, it was way more tackles than that. Like just looked at me and my brother, and I knew because they gave him, the guy was given the NFL stats. He didn't give the correct stats that the coaches took.
It's unbelievable, man. And as a linebacker, you feel just slighted. Anytime they read off the NFL stats, you're like, gosh, I'm way more productive than that. Thank you, though.
Yeah, you feel like you're like, man, I had a big day, and the NFL gives you 4.5 tackles or something.
4.5. You're like, that's great. Thank you for that one assist. I appreciate it.
So you're where are you at right now? I saw you a couple of days ago. We talked a little bit about your football career. Like, where are you at currently today?
I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. That's where I'm at, back home.
As far as like your football life outside of Nashville, what do you have going on?
Really just continuing to work out, just trying to see if anything pops up. Went and worked out with Detroit a week ago, and so that was a good experience. But really just preparing for the next phase, if that's what it is, and if someone gives me a call, I'm staying in shape.
How did that workout go? Was it? I assume that was your first workout since you haven't been on the team. Was it what you expected?
Yeah, it's way different. I mean, when you're working out in front of all the scouts and the GM and the coaches and stuff, and you're the only guy, and you're going through bag drills. I mean, you're trying to obviously give it everything you have every single time. But man, those 12, 13 minutes they felt like eternity. I was gassed. Absolutely gassed, just thinking like, I hope everybody else that's worked out here felt this tired, because this is terrible. But it went pretty well, I thought, besides the wanting to throw up after.
Did they sign anybody?
No, they kept the roster as is. So we'll just wait and see if they have any injuries going down the stretch, and they're making a playoff run. So it'll be interesting to see what they do down the home stretch here towards the playoffs.
Did they give you some, I'd say, subpar workout gear to put on for it? I've seen, and I've actually participated in a few workouts to where they gave us like a mesh pullover that like my daughter would wear in a 6-year-old soccer scrimmage.
No, but they gave us the real deal. I mean, I had to. When you asked for track pants, I was like, hey, can I get some of those sweet track pants? It's a little cold up here in Detroit. They're like, we don't have those. So, okay. But, it was, I didn't get to really keep any of this stuff. They kind of dress you in a separate locker room, too. You don't get to go in the actual big boy locker room. But it was unique. That was my first workout ever for a team, so that was a new experience.
Oh, I'm sure. Now, you were in St. Louis for 7, and then your last team you were with was New Orleans. Like, before we talk about like how everything in New Orleans played out, how was it different being in St. Louis from like the culture in New Orleans?
I think really in St. Louis, we were always trying to, especially early, we had a brand new head coach, Steve Spagnuolo, first time head coach. So you're trying to figure your way out of a slump there in St. Louis. We weren't very good when I first got there. And really, we're always trying to kind of reach that next, just try to get over 500. When Coach Fisher came in, you at least had a guy who you felt had experience at the head coach position, a guy that you felt knew how to evaluate talent and get the best players on the field and stuff like that. So going from there, where we were always trying to get over 500, down in New Orleans where they had won it all, and then their last few seasons they were 7-9, and you felt really uneasy about that. Kind of like things were the sense of urgency was there all the time, and just run differently. I mean, you have two very different coaching staffs and how they run practice, how they run training camp, and everything. So just different. I think there's multiple ways to win as a coach in the NFL, and but definitely both organizations went about it differently.
Who would you say is the more laid back approach between those two?
It's definitely Jeff Fisher. I mean, Coach Fish is super laid back, but as a veteran player, it makes you want to go out there and practice hard for him, because you're like, look, this guy's going to take care of our bodies. He's going to make sure that we're fresh on Sunday. So let's go out and take care of our business. I think sometimes with young teams, it could hurt a little bit because they don't understand how good they have it. There's not many people in the league anymore that were old CBA guys. And the old CBA, I don't even think that was that bad. I mean, when I came in as a rookie in those first few years, I was like, okay, camp's tough. We still had 2-a-days, but you talk to the old timers then, and they're like, oh, this is cupcake. And now today's camps are easy.
Yeah, it's like every generation. Well, back in my day, you guys have no idea. Now it's like you can make fun of the millennials, and I guess you're a millennial.
Like Dad said, I walked uphill to school both ways. Yeah, right.
Yeah, of course. So it's always going to be. Yeah, and I had 5 years in the old CBA and 5 in the new one, so I feel like I had a good comparison. And I mean, they all felt the same. Like honestly, you had 2-a-days and you hit more before, but they still found a way to get as much work out of you in the new CBA.
Yeah, those walkthroughs became super long, and so you're still on your feet just as long. And sometimes, heck, walkthroughs, when you're just standing around, barely moving, the joints start aching, man.
Oh, it's mentally taxing, those long walkthroughs, because it's tough to really get yourself up for it, thinking, all right, well, I got like an hour and 15 minutes straight walkthrough where they're going to throw every tough thing they can at us, and you have to just mentally be on the whole time. That kills you, man. I've heard, I don't know if it's true or not, the theory that your body doesn't really know the difference between mental and physical fatigue. So I jumped on that once I heard it, though.
Yeah. I think they use that for the whole mental rep thing. Like, rookie, just because you're not getting all these reps, you have these mental reps, your body doesn't know the difference. I'm like, heck yeah, all right. Mine sure does.
That's true. So actually, I'm going to backpedal for a second. I want to go back to your Ohio State days. So you're from Minnesota, big hockey guy. We know that. Who's your NHL team, by the way?
My NHL team was the Minnesota North Stars growing up.
What are they now? They're the Wild now?
Yeah, Minnesota Wild, Dallas Stars. I followed them in Dallas for a little bit. Mike Modano, the good old days, but the Minnesota Wild, man. So they came around in 07, so I was like, no, earlier in 07. When they come around? 90s?
You got me, man. I wish I knew.
They came around sometime, bro.
Did you ever have dreams of playing college hockey?
I always thought that hockey to me was more like a hobby. I really loved playing it, but you can't go from Minnesota and not play at some point. So whenever it was wintertime, every year it seemed like I was going to stop playing hockey. My dad would be like, no, you're playing. You're going to go out there and crush skulls and, all that. So I'd go out there and just play every winter and enjoyed it and was pretty good at it, but I never really thought like, gosh, I want to make it in hockey. Like I did for football.
Now, were you who did you have offers from coming out of high school for football?
For football, it was just Minnesota and Ohio State. That's it.
Wow. Now, and you didn't. How did you look at Ohio State like you do now? I don't know how it is. I grew up in Ohio, so I've always kind of looked at Ohio State as my number one goal. How did you look at it when you were coming out of high school?
Man, I didn't even have Ohio State on like my radar as far as a team that I thought would be interested in me. I think for me, it was like, man, if I can get a scholarship to the University of Minnesota. I mean, Minnesota high school football isn't. I mean, you can't compare it to Ohio. So you're coming up and you're like, okay, you might have the top 5 guys ranked in the state that might go to a big school. Someone will leave and go to Notre Dame. Someone will leave and go to Iowa. You never heard of anyone going to Ohio State or Oklahoma or goodness, anywhere outside basically of the bordering states of Minnesota. So for me, I was like, man, I want to be better than all my friends who are going to like Mankato and going to St. Cloud State, and I'm like, I want to make it to at least the Gophers. And then out of nowhere, Ohio State started recruiting me, and I was like, well, I know that they're the Buckeyes. I know that their silver helmets are sweet, and so let's check them out. I knew about the Ohio State and Michigan rivalry, and but I had no idea once I stepped on campus and kind of saw it all up close, just the depth and the history of the school, and kind of it's totally flipped since I've obviously attended that first visit.
Who was your host on your official visit?
Chad Hugler.
Oh, wow. Okay. It's a good one.
Yeah, dude. Awesome. And I have so many great stories on Chad Hugler from just my visit.
Hoobs was a bit young to host you. What was he, only a freshman or sophomore?
Sophomore.
Yeah, man. That is pretty young. I guess they felt like you guys might gel together.
Who knows? Maybe they thought that you and Bob and Anthony just had your own little slumber parties all the time, and you had no time to host a young 18-year-old.
No, they didn't trust us with any more recruits. That was the problem, bro. That was the problem. We hosted Bobby and I hosted Schlegel on his official visit from Air Force when he could have been our dad. He came in, he was already way older than us, and I don't think we really got any more recruits after that.
Hey, Dad, he want to buy his drinks? I mean, you're old enough.
Yeah, for real. He was old enough by multiple years to buy drinks. Wow. So on your visit, like, how did that go when you got to campus and I assume your parents came and everybody, had you already been, oh, well, yeah, of course. But did it reinforce what you were thinking? Like, okay, yeah, this is definitely the right decision.
Yeah. I mean, when I visited, I was like, I hadn't committed yet. So I was still committed technically to Minnesota. And so when I was there, man, I was just kind of blown away by the facilities, blown away. I visited in the winter, so it was bowl practice. Remember watching all you guys practice and just being like, these dudes are huge, just giant meatballs. So I didn't know what I was getting myself into. But I knew instantly when you saw the success of everything, and just the history of linebacker play there, I was like, goodness, I want to be a part of this. And plus, Coach Tressel was awesome. I mean, you sit down in an office with Coach Tressel. I mean, you can go in there wanting to talk about one thing, and you're going to leave wanting to make the world better and change it. So he had an unbelievable ability to kind of draw you in that way. So between that and then obviously having a good time, we didn't do a whole lot, as far as going out. I remember one sweet night with Hugler. All I know is I can't leave too many details, but all I know is I woke up to a note from Chad that said, James, awesome night. We stayed at the Blackwell that time.
Yeah.
And it was like, hope you commit, like, love Chad. And all I know is that there was just blue liquid from whatever he drank the night before all over the bathroom. Like,
oh, God.
What the heck? And I was like, yeah, I'm sold. Let's go.
Did he stay with you?
No, he just dropped me off.
Oh,
it was just like, we kept drinking that night, but I must have just went to the bed and he just dipped out, man, after throwing up my in the bathroom.
Yeah. So then when it wasn't that weird. I remember my official visit, like I was just driven around like in these vans to different places that I wasn't really sure where. We ended up, now I live probably 25 minutes from campus where I'm at, 20 minutes in Dublin. We ended up at someone's house in Dublin at like 3 a.m. on my visit. And I know who the family is. The kid played in the team, and all of a sudden there's like 10 of us at this dude's house eating cereal in his kitchen, and like his mom's waking up and just seeing all these dudes, and I don't even know like what happened. On your visit, did you have any expectations going in? Because I think official visits they're funny, man, because they play such a huge role in getting certain guys to schools. And I have multiple friends who told me they went to the school 100% because of the official visit they had.
Yeah, I didn't really have any expectations, but you definitely hear of stories like that where you're like, and especially now, I can't imagine what the expectations are for kids going to campuses with social media and all that. I mean, heck, they can get themselves into whatever they want by reaching out ahead of time. So it's crazy. For me, I was just like, look, where do I want to play ball? But I think, you're right when you talk about this awkwardness of, I'm like, look, I have no idea where we're driving. I don't know what parts of these streets are we still on campus? Are we off campus? Like, where am I? And just hoping at the end of the night that you're going to end up being okay and getting to the next thing in the morning, really. So it was, but I had that same feeling, like, where are we going? But I just remember going to a few places on campus. I can't remember the names.
Yeah. So then the next morning, though, it's brutal. They wake you guys up, the recruits, and they bring you and make you sit in meetings and try not to doze off in front of the AD and all these people. But then they always parade the recruits out at practice, and you guys would come watch practice while we were out there. And it was always so funny to see the recruits come out because usually they're in pretty bad shape most of the time. And we all could kind of remember putting ourselves back in those shoes. But you said you saw just a bunch of idiot meatheads out there on the field like us, and you felt like they were big. Did that make you more inclined to come to Ohio State, or was that like intimidating at all?
No, I think there's a level of humility that comes with that. When you go out there and you see, like, goodness, I don't care where you're from, you go out there and see guys like you, Bobby, and Anthony practicing, and you guys were all, I was, 220, but you guys were all huge and just, so it's like, all right, yeah, this is humbling me a little bit at the size and speed at which an actual big time college linebacker plays. But I think on the other hand, it also made me excited that, hey, if you can go to Ohio State and play, you're going to know really fast whether you're made it for the NFL or not, because you have no excuse to go, oh, I went to a small school. Like, you hear these guys all the time, like, oh, man, I balled out, but I was at a smaller. That doesn't, like, if you're at Ohio State and you play and you still don't make it to the NFL, then okay, you weren't good enough. And I wanted that challenge. I wanted to know really fast whether I was cut out to keep playing football through college and onward, or whether I needed to actually figure out, what life was going to be like next, because I didn't want to go to a school and then just keep hanging on. I never wanted to be a guy that just keep hanging on to the dream, and not ready just to move on from football whenever that time was. Now,
going from there, fast forward to the last regular season game, your freshman year. For people that aren't from Ohio, I don't know if they're going to like this podcast or not. I'm sure they'll love hearing your stories, but this is going to be a very Ohio-centric podcast. And everyone around Ohio knows your story. They know the whole thing. So Bobby Carpenter went down on the first play of the game, right?
Yeah.
Against our senior year, Bobby Carpenter, Anthony Schlegel, and myself were playing linebacker, and Bobby went down very first play of the game at Michigan, and in comes little baby James Laurinaitis to replace Bobby the second play, and we didn't even realize it happened so quickly. I remember in the huddle, I didn't even really see Bobby limping off the field, and I just see James coming out. I was like, all right, I don't know, is Bobby tired? What's happening? And I think you might have told me that Bobby had gotten hurt or whatever, and so we figured that out after that drive. But fast forward to that, when you came in, how was that first drive and that whole experience of getting in, and not only playing the rest of the game in the biggest game of the year, basically?
Man, I was so nervous. I ran out of the field at kickoff, and I remember, like, the guy trying to block me at kick return had basically got his feet caught up with somebody else, but it made it look like I kind of ran him over. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of like feeling hype, you're just a freshman, like, yeah, we're in the big house, just talking trash. I get to the sideline, I'm talking with Malcolm Jenkins, and so next thing you know, I hear Fick yelling for me, and I'm like, what the heck are you yelling at me for right now? And I see Bobby limping off, telling the trainers that he broke his femur.
Self-diagnosing, yes.
Yeah, self-diagnosed. Bobby, do you know where your femur is? It's actually, no, you broke your ankle, your leg down. But anyway, so that's one of my favorite stories, by the way, is when the trainers still give him a hard time.
I forgot about that. So he told him he broke his femur?
They said that as he's getting a cart. He was like, hey, I need a cart to go up the tunnel. I broke my femur. That's what Doug and them claim he said. And, you asked Bob about it. There's no way. I know the anatomy of the human body,
Oh, God.
So that's one of my favorite memories, just that moment. But really getting in the game, man, I was just like, look, don't mess it up. You got a lot of other seniors out here. This defense is rolling. Don't be that guy just to be out of position. Don't try to do anything too spectacular. And and screw it up. So just really was focused on executing. I think Luke Fickell always had us prepared. Luke was there as a GA with you guys before he became linebacker coach and all of that. So he had a certain authority, I feel like, over Marcus Freeman and myself and the younger guys than he may have had with you and Bobby and Anthony. And so he always made sure. I remember when you guys left, I mean, the first meeting of spring was like, all right, things aren't going to be like it was with Anthony, Bobby, and AJ. And so I was like, all right. It's like he was putting his foot down finally since his buddies were leaving.
Well, yeah, that's the funny thing. So, yeah, Luke Fickell was he was like a GA or assistant D-line coach maybe when I got there. He took over as linebacker coach. And it's not like there was like ultimate respect back and forth between Luke and all of us. But it is a weird thing how that dynamic changes when he goes. A coach can go from that to being your boss, your direct guy that you spend multiple hours with every single day. And Luke was not easy on us. He's not scared to fight you physically. He's not scared to play mental games. And I love that guy more than anything and have so much respect for Luke. And I talk him up every single day. I just tweeted something a couple weeks ago when Todd Blackledge was saying something about how you got to give Luke Fickell credit for this defense. I'm like, yeah, that's right, man. You're like, it's about time. Luke deserves all the credit in the world. And he's such a highly respected guy. I tell him all the time, he's the craziest guy I've ever met in a good way because he will not back down. He's not afraid, I don't think, to put anything out there, which is coaches. It's always good to be up front. And I think that's something I always respected. He would tell you right off the jump, like, no matter what, if you did something wrong. Now, the dynamic between, I would say, Luke and Bobby Carpenter is one of my favorite things ever. How was that in that linebacker room? How was that being your first year and welcome to the NCAA big time college football when you saw that linebacker room day in and day out, the antics that happened?
Bro, between Bobby checking, like Bobby be on Luke's phone in the back of the room.
Right.
You would be in front of him. Schlags would be over there just dropping bombs, and Luke would be getting pissed at Schlags, like, walk out of the meeting room if you have to fart. And then you had Mike DeAndrea in the back, just big Mike. And so between all of you guys, and I'm like, what the heck is going on in this meeting room right now? But you're right. I mean, the day that Bobby came in, where he was messing around with Schlags before practice, kind of whipping him with a towel, and he hit him in the junk, and Schlags got pissed, and Luke kicked him out. When he came into that meeting room, we all were like, okay, let's see if they actually go at it, because we thought for sure those two. And I just remember when Bob got kicked out of the meeting room, and they're almost like chest to chest, and Bob walks by, throws his hair behind his ear, and Luke tries to slam the door. But the funniest part about trying to slam the door is that it had one of those like springs on it. So he's like, goes to slam it, and this is slowly shuts, and just the steam coming off it. Man, those are the fun memories that you'll never forget. And it was really, I think you're right. Luke deserves all the credit, because what I always said was that Luke Fickell had me the most prepared every week for a football game. And it was the way he coached. He didn't want there to be any gray area. Like you said, it's all black and white to him. There was no mind games as far as playing time or what was expected out of you. Heck, I remember after my first start, my first start of 2006 season, we were playing Northern Illinois. We didn't play very well versus Garrett Wolf. We came out and beat Northern Illinois because we were more talented on the offensive side of the ball. They couldn't stop Troy, but we gave up like 200 yards rushing in the first game, and we were about to go down to Texas week 2, and we were number 1 there, number 2. And I remember Luke telling me that week, like, look, you got to play better. And if you don't play better early on in the game, I'm going to pull you, and I'll put Larry Grant in,
Jeez.
Quite frankly. So you have to, there was no black and white with them, and I appreciated it because there was no mind games.
Oh man, that's so true, and that's such a thing for a player to deal with and come through you play well at Texas, because that's, as a player, I think that's tough if a coach tells you that that's in the back of your mind when you're going out there, like, oh man, my first missed tackle, I can't look to the sidelines, this dude's going to try to yank me.
Right.
So to do that and come through that has to give you huge confidence. I think that's something it's always good. Any kind of little adversity like that you fight through. But after your freshman year though, after we went to the Fiesta Bowl, one that beat Notre Dame in the Fiesta Bowl, it was all of a sudden like it was your team, it was your defense. You became the leader of that whole team. It seemed like we had a big senior class that was graduating, but that was when you jumped in, 3-time All-American right off the bat. Like, how was that switching those roles from being this young, bright-eyed freshman kid into stepping into a huge leadership role?
I think it happened naturally. It was just, I think, through the spring. I knew a lot of the guys that would be playing would be guys that were my age or a year older. So naturally, just, I think being the Mike linebacker calling the defense in there, it was just a natural thing to kind of be a leader. And I just tried to do it by actions more than words, to be honest with you. I don't think you need to do a whole lot of rah-rah stuff all the time. You just got to show up on time, work hard, lift weights, do it, do the extra stuff and try to bring others with you. But it wasn't just me. I mean, we had Malcolm Jenkins as well, Malcolm's more outspoken than I am, type of leader. But I think really for that off season, there was just a chance that somebody had to kind of step up and try to lead it somehow. And we had a lot to replace. Like you said, all you guys left, a big senior class, and then Dante Whitner leaves early. We were replacing a whole lot. So I think we all just tried to really work hard. And I think naturally being the Mike linebacker, and then I got fortunate to make a few plays early in the season, which kind of solidified that. And so you can't really lead without playing well. I always thought, that's the case. You can't be bench leaders they're not real. I think you have to be a guy that you go out there and you play well, you prove you can do it. And then once people say, hey, this guy can do it, then they'll follow and they'll listen. Just like I think people who just talk all the time aren't leaders either, because you're just like, this guy, he's constantly talking and giving speeches. He has nothing, there's nothing of substance for me to actually grasp, when sometimes I think it's more effective when someone's quiet, does it by example. And then when they do say something, they're like, shoot, he's upset. Maybe it's time to, so it just happened naturally.
Can you think of any, who are maybe one or two of the best leaders that you've been around in your time?
Drew Brees is one of them. Drew is,
what kind of leader is he?
Just, you see it in his routine. When I first got to New Orleans, it was his daily routine. Is like clockwork, and he's never gets off it. It's the same stuff over and over. So he's constantly working at it. And then it's not even a lot of times the rah stuff. It's more of, he just puts everything in perspective, and the big picture is always there. Whether it's a embarrassing loss or whether it's a huge win, it's always the same. This is where we are. This is where we need to go. This is how we're going to get there, type of thing. And it's not overly long all the time. The speeches aren't like these long thought up things. It's just natural. I think he's done it for a long time, obviously. He knows what he's doing. And then I think on a total different kind of spectrum is I think Malcolm Jenkins is a good leader. He's a guy totally different. He's so competitive. And Drew is too. There's different ways. Malcolm's the outspoken, he's going to let you know about it. Kind of competition. He's always competition hungry. We got a cornhole set in the Woody Hayes, and Malcolm and I were playing it. He had never played it like before his freshman year or sophomore year when we redid the Woody Hayes Center. And he's kind of guy where he's like, by tomorrow night I'll beat you, kind of thing. And he'll sit there and practice all day, night and day, because he's just that competitive. I think you need guys like that. Drew was the same way, but he's the kind of guy that after he'd throw a slant on you, and maybe you broke one up the time before, he won't say anything. He'll just lick his fingers, go back to the huddle, and that he knows that I just got you on that. So they're definitely way different, but those are probably the top two.
Now, down in New Orleans, how was Drew and Sean Payton's relationship?
I think Sean has a really close relationship, not only with Drew, but also all the guys that are still there from the 06, his first draft class and his first free agent class. So Jari Evans, Zach Strief, Drew Brees, those are the guys that he's battled with for 10 years now. But you can see that when you have a quarterback that can handle the offensive scheme that Sean puts in, and then they can kind of work together on a game plan. That's rare. Especially in today's NFL, to have a head coach player that have been together this long is super rare now. And so they have a very special relationship. They work hand in hand on everything. You constantly see them talking about details of even route running, where Drew wants to put the ball where he should put the ball, and just kind of having open discussions about what they think is best going into a game plan. So, it was fun to see when you saw it up close, because you're like, you truly understand why Drew is as good as he is because of his work ethic, his routine, and his mental preparation.
It seems like that. I've met him once or twice just out at different things, but I'm always wonder about like those super elite quarterbacks, like what's their process like? And I've heard about his routine and process, and it's not surprising to hear those things. There's no secret. Like there's no secret of why some guys are so elite. It's because of how they prepare and how they work.
Yeah, definitely. I think when you have to see the way he's kind of maintained it, and I would assume that someone like Tom Brady's the same way. I don't know. I haven't been around him. I saw him practice when we practiced against him this year, and you saw kind of the way that he competed and stuff. But people who keep their hunger and their drive and just their competitiveness, and also the routine and the little things because I think a lot of times it's easy once you make a few good seasons or whatever. I think the natural thing is maybe those little things I did before, you don't have to do them. And you see like these old elite quarterbacks, they just keep doing little things really well and improving, and that's why they're still around.
Yeah, and a guy like Drew is a guy that wasn't blessed with the God-given 6'6" QB,
right.
Like the QB prototype body.
Right.
So he overcame a huge shoulder, I guess, injury that brought him to New Orleans. So yeah, I mean, he's done a lot. He's overcome a lot. I could see him doing it for multiple more years. With your time in New Orleans, when you so you got put on IR and then you are not there anymore. I don't know how they waive you hurt, or that's happened to me in Green Bay. But did you know it was coming? Did you want to get out of there? Like, how did the whole process of the transition out of there happen?
Well, I re-hurt my quad. I think it was just a timing issue with Sheldon Rankins was coming back off of the IR designated to return, and it was they knew they had to activate him by game day, but they knew that I was on the active roster, but I wasn't going to play because of my quad. And when you're an 8-year vet and you've never really done special teams, and you go out there on special teams, they kind of realize, like, look, this guy isn't a core teamer. So they just said, hey, we're going to put you on IR, and these are the options. And so I think really what I didn't want to do is I didn't want to just sit there and wait until the end of the season. It was really hard for me because on one hand, you're like, man, you go through a whole off season, a training camp. The team had voted me captain. So you're like, should I just sit here and ride it out on IR? But by doing that, you're giving up a chance to play football that year. Especially when I was still healthy. I felt like I would have been healthy the week after they put me in IR. And so when you get waived off IR, you're at least able to go out in the open market. And then this way, after I cleared waivers, have a chance to work out for anybody. And so it was a tough decision because you figure since they put you on IR for not really being hurt, there probably isn't a future there. And so maybe it was just best to move on and kind of why delay it a couple, 6-7 weeks and just go back, work out, and move back to Nashville.
Yeah. And give you a chance, to go somewhere else. I mean, that's kind of where it seems like you're at right now, to where you're kind of in a good spot to where you can hang out, you can work out, be with your family, but then if a team has a need and they're a playoff contender, you're fully available and like the top guy for a team to sign when they need a good vet like you to step in and play from day one.
Yeah, I feel healthy. I mean, I'm really healthy. I'm good right now. Now's the nice thing about them. I guess when I look back, I'm like, they could have just injury settled, waived, and been like, go rehab on your own kind of thing. But with the short-term IR that we decided, it was like, hey, you have no rush to come back and play because you physically can't for this team because you're put on IR. So make sure that you're fully healthy. And so I probably waited around in rehab there an extra week just to make sure I was good. Did a lot of field work with the physical therapist at the Saints there, Bo Lowry. And so when we were doing that stuff and I felt, okay, I can go around and play football, that's when it actually happened where I got released. So I'm totally healthy, and I'm just staying in shape and making sure that you really just stay mentally engaged to what's going on around the league. And if you get a phone call from big old Tom Condon, I'll answer it and see what he's got. But there's really no pressure to do anything. I don't really feel any pressure or worry or kind of anxiety over nothing happening yet. And if nobody calls by the end of the year, I'll still keep working out. And if nothing happens in the spring, then you make a decision. But I'm pretty content right now.
Nice. Now, staying on the same track, but how your time in St. Louis? I mean, you were the guy in St. Louis. I've played against you there multiple times, and your pictures out on the outside of the dome with your dogs, your big dog campaign situation, whatever it is. You're at big.
Purina's a huge sponsor, bro. Purina is from St. Louis, huge sponsor. That's why we all have the dogs on the outside.
Purina should have stepped up and kept the Rams there, man. Well, I don't think they could have, but so yeah. I mean, like you said, all-time leading tackler for the Rams. Now, when you were released from there, did you know it was coming? Did they shock you, or did you have a feeling it was going to happen?
I thought that maybe they would talk about a restructuring of the contract, when you get older, and you saw the young talent with Alec Ogletree around. I was interested to see how they were going to handle it with Mark Barron. He had filled in for Alec and played really well at that will linebacker position. I foresaw something where maybe they would say, hey, you can play Mike in the regular stuff, but in the sub stuff, maybe we'll move Alec there. There was a lot of scenarios. A flat-out release I didn't really see coming. Having said that, even though I didn't see it coming, I mean, when you're in it for 7 years, you already know, look, I mean, you've seen a lot of stuff happen you didn't see coming, so you're not really shocked by anything anymore when it comes to the NFL. But I think there was just a lot of miscommunication things along the way. I'm not sure a lot of people within the organization saw it coming. I just a week before did an interview with ESPN LA. So it's kind of like you're doing this interview, yet the week after you're released. So I'm not sure everyone was even, it wasn't like I was floating around the building that I was going to be axed, and Chris and Jared as well. So, but I mean, heck, I'm over it now, and it's all good. But it's never easy when you get fired that first time. I mean, everyone's like, well, how's it feel? Like, well, I've never been fired before. So
it gets easier and easier, man. Speaking from experience. I don't take anything personal when it comes to the NFL, really. I understand how it works. But I mean, when I first was released from Green Bay, I knew for sure something was coming. I mean, I'd already restructured. I had a feeling. I only had 1 year left on my deal, but I definitely had a feeling. I was like, man, I feel like it's run its course. Like, I don't have a role here much. It was just like in the air.
Yeah.
And I think I remember you doing it. I think even Chris Long was one of the guys too. They were parading out there to hype up you guys going to Los Angeles. And then, so that's why I think I was more surprised when I saw both of you guys gone. I was like, what? Obviously people were not speaking in the building, because whoever makes the decisions there did not. I mean, I understand if they want to keep it to themselves, but they didn't like put the memo out like, hey, here, let's slide some of these younger guys out to do this LA stuff.
Right. Let's stop. Maybe we should have, or if they say, hey, we're gonna have James and Chris do some media. Maybe shouldn't. No.
Why not, Coach? Let's just try to.
I just don't feel like it's good timing. Yeah, come up with something. No, it's. I mean, that's the way the NFL is, and everyone tries to keep their decisions top secret till the last second. I was in there working out, and I just got done working out, and I stopped in the training room just to say hi to the trainers, and our head trainer was like, oh, hey, Coach wants to see you. And so when you hear that, you're like, oh, gosh. Like, it's middle of off season. Why do you want to see me, So that's when that was probably right when he said those words, I was like, dang, this is probably it. And
really?
So,
you had a feeling right then?
Yeah, I mean, Coach Fisher is a guy that he takes a lot of trips in the off season. He's not a guy that's going to be in the building all off season. Like, I'm just going to bang my head against the wall and study a draft board or free agent. Like, he enjoys his time off. I think as you should as a coach. You're in the building so dang much in season, you should get out of there. So the fact that he was in the building, and I'm just like, I mean, what's he doing here? And the fact that he had found out that I was in the building and wanted to see me, I'm like, I assume it was for anything really good. I feel like when it's something good when there haven't been negotiations about a contract and the head coach wants to see you, in season he might every now and again talk about leadership stuff, how's the pulse of the team, stuff like that. But mid off season, he's not the most talkative guy in the world, so it's not like you'd be like, hey, hey, how's your off season going, buddy? That wasn't coming.
Wow. So how does that happen then once you get in his office? Like, what does he say? Does he beat around the bush, or does he tell you right away while you're there?
No, he told me. He said, hey, man, this is tough. We appreciate everything that you've done for this organization, but we're going to release you today. And that was basically that. Was a little small talk after that, kind of the typical any way I can help, let me know kind of thing. But that was basically it, which I always wonder about when a coach says any way I can help. I'm like, oh yeah, well, by the way, I want to go here. Can you give a phone call? I was like, they don't. Yeah. Hey, it's Jeff calling. Can you sign?
Yeah, exactly. It is. I mean, it's got to be tough. When I've been released, I've felt for the coaches that are doing it, or the GMs, whoever I may be talking to. I'm like, all right. I'm like, it's cool, man. Like, don't worry about. I'm all right. I'll be all right. I'll be fine. Like, and I've been lucky to deal with some really great people. But so, what's the first thing you do? You call your wife?
Yeah, first thing I did was I called Shelly, and I was like, look, I've been fired. No, I said I've been released. Just after that, really, it's just like make sure that you call your family and it's like, look, I'm all right. Don't. Sometimes the people around you can take stuff harder than you do.
All day, man. All day. That's exactly how I feel.
Yeah. So you're like, look, I'm good. I'm all right. And so just making sure there wasn't any overreacting on social media or anything like that. I wanted everyone to handle it normally and basically not say anything. And just let everything run its course. But yeah, I went around and said, thanks to everybody in the building. Because heck, you know the way it is. You're in one spot for 7 years. You make a lot of relationships. my favorite ones are with the head trainer and with the equipment guy, Jimmy Lake. It's one of my favorite people ever. Jimmy Lake, I saw him again in Aspen, Colorado at Sam Bradford's wedding. Awesome. Bruce Warwick. Bruce. Yeah. Bruce Warwick was one of my favorite people in the
man.
In the building.
Those guys behind the scenes that people may not see much. Yeah. The ones you're like, that's who I still talk to this day. Nate Weir, one of the trainers in Green Bay, I married him. So I officiated his wedding, and I'm checking on their kids and text with them all the time. So it's like those are the people that you get really close with because you're with them all the time. So I can imagine those are some of the hardest relationships to know, like, oh man, I'm not going to be coming in here every single day. That's one of the things that I think I had to deal with when I realized I wasn't going to be in Green Bay anymore.
Yeah, it's the small BS talk. Rock Gullickson, I would go. Yes. Heck, if I went to the bathroom out of a special teams meeting, because I knew I wasn't going to be on teams, I'd go and sit in Rock's office for about 10 minutes, draw some artwork on his video board or his whiteboard when he wasn't there. I'd draw some artwork on the mirrors so that when he was doing guns in the mirror, it'd show up if he had a white shirt on. Just enjoy those moments there. And those are the people I'm going to talk to is the people that's the strength coach, the equipment guy, and then Bruce. Bruce's office was always right by and just loved BS and small talking, trying to figure out anything in the building. Hey, are the Rams going to London next year? Is that for real? Oh, it is? Sweet. Trying to get any of the scoop on the organization, man, trying to figure out what the future was. And so very cool experience there with those guys. And that's what you miss when it's all done is those memories.
Now, going from that, did you immediately start talking to other teams and taking visits?
I started talking to other teams. It was Atlanta, New Orleans. I talked with Steve Spagnuolo a little bit, just didn't really work out with New York. Anything ever coming together. I'm not sure their GM or anyone, whoever the head decision maker there was interested. But it was a easy process. I wasn't really stressing it too much. I just wanted to go somewhere where I felt like it'd be a scheme fit. In New Orleans, ran the same defense that I had played in the previous 2 or 3 years. And so I thought that'd be a good fit.
So that was I was going to ask you, what was your final, that's what made you go to New Orleans, mainly the scheme, and you felt good when you were down there?
I thought Drew Brees, was a big reason. I knew that they were going to put up 40 points a game. And when you play defense and you have a standard of, hey, we can hold these guys at 21 and probably still win a game, that's pretty different than what I experienced in St. Louis when, you lose some games 13-3. Like we lost one 12-6 to the Arizona Cardinals Thursday night, all field goals.
Yeah, you did. You definitely played on defenses that had to probably realize, well, if we give up 17, we might be losing this one for sure.
Yeah, no doubt.
That's got to be a different mindset as a defense. But so you're, I can't believe we got 45 minutes in. I haven't even got to ask you a little bit about your family and your dad, man. The road warrior, the animal
Yeah.
or the animal?
Just animal.
Just animal and Hawk, right? R.I.P.
Yeah.
Hawk.
That's right.
When did Hawk die?
2003.
Man, and what was it?
Heart problems.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's a shame. Did you grow up? So you're growing up in that whole world, though. For people that don't know, your dad is part of the greatest tag team duo ever, the Road Warriors, the spiked shoulder pads and stuff that you sleep in at night. How was that? Like, how was that as a kid? Like, that has from your earliest memory, your dad was already wrestling, right? So how was that coming up like that?
Well, I thought it was normal. Not till when you grow up and you kind of get out on your own, do you realize that probably wasn't normal. So to me, really, that was the crazy thing was, look, when my dad coached us, man, he'd wear his own like tank top. He'd have like a skinny, like, Gold's Gym style.
Yeah.
It'd be like the Legion of Doom logo. And he'd have like his mohawk ponytail, about 3'10", just swole, just yelling at me not to throw interceptions.
Dang, he was 3'10".
Yeah, he was 320 at his biggest.
Wow, man.
I used to witness him doing like 300 something, like barbell behind the neck military press. Like,
wow.
He's taking the good stuff in the 80s, man.
Now that's a man. That's right. Before
Good
the
stuff,
now the WWE has like a wellness program. Like, what is it? Come on now. What does he think of that?
Yeah, wellness program.
You gotta make it look good for the public, don't you?
You have to, I guess.
But I guess that's what you have to be careful though, and not careful. But your uncle is like Vince's right hand man, isn't he?
Yeah.
John Laurinaitis.
Johnny.
So was he involved before your dad?
No, so I think my Uncle John wrestled over in Japan for a long time. He got hooked up with WCW when he got done wrestling and really wanted to look at talent relations and how can I kind of get in almost like a GM of a company. And so he got with WCW. And so when WWF then bought WCW and they merged, that's when my Uncle John kind of caught on with WWF, and then it became WWE and, yada, yada, yada. But it was kind of weird. My dad was wrestling with WWF and my Uncle John was over in Japan, and then my dad gets done and Uncle John goes over and jumps right in as a behind the scenes guy. So it's been a crazy. Their other brother, Mark, wrestled for a little bit in WCW too back in the day, which is funny. I was like, I can imagine those three and the household that my grandma and grandpa had to go through.
For real, man. What is your Uncle John, like, what's his title? Do you know?
Well, it was vice president of talent relations back. I think he got married recently, got remarried. And so he took a kind of a step down from all that into something else. So
okay,
that's kind of where, I don't even know what the exact title is now.
Now, when you were growing up and your dad was wrestling, was that at the time, was he in like his prime to where he was on the road 250 days a year?
Yeah, he was. I would say his prime years were like late 80s, early 90s. So it's when I was still pretty young, but he was still gone. I mean, a ton, but just beat up. There was moments with him and Hawk, and I think they got suspended once, just due to some partying based on Hawk and
like a real suspension, not like a fake storyline.
Oh, like real deal, man, real deal, Holyfield. Yeah. So those guys partied hard back in the day, man. Wrestlers, I mean, they party hard, so there'd be repercussions when you cross the line. But it was always, my dad would always go on these like 3-week trips to Japan too in the summer, do a little wrestling over there. Believe it or not, he had a huge following in Japan.
I think your dad, when you came to Ohio State, I feel like he was still dabbling in Japan a little bit.
Probably was. He probably was. He didn't really stop till I want to say my freshman year was when it was like his last tour. 'Cause I remember in camp, I took the freshman class down to Raw when they were in town. We had a good time. I remember Doug Worthington. I remember Tressel asked him for a report on, all I remembered was the divas, was the girls. Tressel was like, "That's what you guys went and did." That was it. That's great.
Have you ever thought about wrestling, or are you thinking now that you're not on a team? Really?
No.
Oh man, why? You were too close? You're too close to the action?
Well, I saw the pain my dad would be in when he came home, and there's no way after going through seven seasons and 3 games if I wanted to, hey, you want to jump in the ring and get slammed around? No, thank you. No way.
How's your dad doing now?
All the traveling is super tough, man. I went through all that, in the facility, all that for 16 weeks, 20 weeks. You do that into year round unless you really get hurt or in trouble. I mean, they're gonna make sure you're there headlining, doing something.
Oh, Vince doesn't mess around. He puts him to work. He knows what he's doing. That's for sure.
Heck yeah.
How's your dad doing now? I still email with him a little bit here and there, but it's been a little while. How is he?
Yeah, he's doing well. He's doing really well. He's hanging in there. Still going around doing little autograph signings, stuff like that. Living the dream. Still wears his Road Warrior animal shirt through the airport. So if you see a guy who's kind of big with like a Road Warrior animal shirt on, it probably is him.
It probably is the animal. Oh man. Okay, so I'm starting to wrap up here. I know you have a little daughter. I know I can hear in the background, and I have kids myself.
You hear around?
Yeah, man, it's all right. It happens all the time on my podcast. It's good. So this is a question Bobby and I asked, and I think we've asked you, but I forget. So say your dad goes and does a signing or something. Does he wear the face paint in the car, or does he put it on when he gets there?
I think he puts it on when he gets there. It depends on the time. How much time does he have?
See, that's the thing. It's like a clown, though. A clown can't show up to a kid's party without his clown stuff on.
It's true. And the worst part is that back in the day, we really had a lot of pride. Like before media and everything expanded, they had a lot of pride in trying to keeping in like character. Like they were supposed to stay in character year round. So he would have face paint on sometimes, like in the 80s, like late 80s, early 90s, like coming home, he'd have a little face paint on because they wanted him to believe. Like, wow. Can you imagine him just going through an airport with face paint on and like,
oh my god,
sitting next to him?
So yeah, I mean, I've heard him talk about how they try to stay like in character. I've listened to even like Chris Jericho talk about it now on his podcast. He's like, well, he's a heel, I guess. I don't follow wrestling much at all, but he's almost felt bad. He's had to like ignore kids on an elevator or something. If he's been a heel for a couple months, he's like, I can't give up the persona. But I never thought of like the actual. You're right. If someone sees him without face paint, a little kid might see him and be like, oh my god, my dreams are shattered.
And I'm like, here's what I always say, because not everyone does it. You see like Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man. Like Ted's got a normal deal. He's a pastor now. He goes on with his life. You don't see Jake the Snake carrying around a rattlesnake everywhere. So I think really, I've always told him like, why don't you just have a normal haircut? And he's like, oh, you got to keep the mohawk for the fans. Yeah, all right.
I love it,
man. The old school guys have that commitment.
I respect it, man. I respect that old school guys. I respect how they burn the candles at both ends. I really do. Like when you hear stories and watch documentaries on these dudes, I'm like, oh my gosh, how did these dudes make it? Like Ric Flair. Is your dad close with Ric Flair?
I have no idea how Rick is still going, man. Rick is the man.
His daughter is like wrestling big time, right?
Yeah, she is.
Do you follow wrestling still?
No.
Not at all?
Oh, I really don't. Usually around like WrestleMania time, you can kind of catch up on what's happened in the last year. I feel like it's like watching Super Bowl coverage for a week, right? You basically figure out what happened with those two teams all year based on highlights and their stories. So it's the same thing with wrestling. You don't pay attention. Usually around Royal Rumble, they'll already have like the card for WrestleMania and they'll start promoting it 2 months out. So I don't really, unless there's like something huge, like Undertaker still living the dream, going at it every WrestleMania, that's when I'll watch, but I don't really follow.
Yeah, I have in my house, I have a signed 8x10 of your dad in Hawk in full gear, like in a photo shoot, flexing, and it's awesome, man. It says AJ, all the best in the NFL. Like he gave it to me right after my senior year.
Because Curry's been a briefcase man.
Does he just have to add the name? He just puts the name in? Oh, the best.
No, but I swear, like, he would just randomly have them. Like, he'd be like, what do you still have? Like, what? You know, like someone's asking for a Sharpie and they're like, hey, do you have something to sign? Like, no, I don't just carry a Sharpie around. He might. He might.
Have a satchel with 8x10s?
A satchel. Yeah, no doubt, man.
That's all right, man. I like it. So hopefully if he listens to this or watches this, respect, animal. Appreciate it. Appreciate your dedication.
He doesn't carry around an 8x. He doesn't carry around a little satchel and a Sharpie, but
I know I've had multiple conversations.
He's very willing to interact with people about his wrestling career. That's for sure.
Yeah, he's a very normal person that can have normal conversations. He's not grunting at me and headbutting the whole time. So yes, for people that think that may be who he is. No, he's not. All right, James, man. Really, thanks a lot, man. Had a good time talking to you. Good luck with everything. I'm sure a team will bring you in. You'll be cracking skulls with people in no time.
All right, man. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks, man. See you.
Bye.
We're glad you could join us for today's conversation. After you subscribe to the show, head over to thehawkcast.com or reach out to AJ directly on Twitter at @officialAJHawk to recommend future guests that will help us inspire people to keep talking. Thanks again, and we look forward to speaking with you next time on the HawkCast.